Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
It is
Force.
very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And pleasant good evening to you, our valued listening audience, and welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Tonight, our show centers around global warming and the necessary preparations for the world to meet the global mandate of stopping the projected average temperature from rising to beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade, which will prove to be a total disaster to our Earth as we know it. Very soon, industry will be compelled to provide verification that they are working toward meeting net zero carbon emissions surrounding their operational activities. We will learn tonight some of the details of measures being undertaken at a crude oil terminal outside of the Bahamas that is currently taking positive strides in making such preparations. So, we are fortunate to have one of our very own Bahamian experts in this field who will share his knowledge, his qualifications, and his experience with us on how his oil facility is faring towards this end. So keep those lines taut, y'all, and chime in on the super duper discussion. Of course, we will open the show by making mention of numerous other current maritime matters, such as the regulations of Porter's Key Dock. You know, I drove with Porter's Key. And again, Transcargo, still there, sank. It's going to take a while to move a ship that size, no matter how it sink, why it sink, and whatever. You've got to mobilize certain equipment to float that ship and to move it away. So we can understand that it's still there. And then I went to the western side of Porter's Key Dock. And you got a bunch of conglomeration, a bunch of cumbersome, unnecessary stuff going on down there. And then you look out just below the bridge, the new bridge, and you see that there's a ship so long. This ship is over 200 feet long. Name something Mail, Cape, something. I know who the owner is. It's my good friend, and he's a good guy. But I just, we need to do something with that. You can't park that ship right under the new bridge and expect large vessels to pass under the highest peak of the bridge, because that ship extends into the highest peak. And so it's a very dangerous maneuver for a ship that has an air draft that is very difficult to make that transfer from east to west, or even from west to east. So I said to my good friend that owns that long Mail, Cape, something ship out there, please move that further west. We know you need space, and we want you to have space, but we don't want you to make it difficult for navigation. So please, if you put that about 2 or 3 ships west, or even to the extreme northwestern point, then it will not impede the movement of other vessels trying to safely navigate the new bridge. So let's try and make sure that happens. Has the sunken Transcargo been cleared away as yet? We know it hasn't, And I had a good talk with 1 or 2 people. I know a lot of people in low places. My thing is, I know plenty people in low places because I come from nothing. And when you come from nothing, you get to know people in low places. And guess what? The people in low places are the people that run things. So my people in low places is telling me that things have started to take place with moving this trans cargo out away where they're going to float it, then move it out and sink it. Well, I mean, it's already sunken, but you want to put it so it wouldn't be a navigation hazard. You want to put it so it wouldn't be clogging up Porter's Key, right? So we well on the way. And mind you, we can watch that. We can watch that trans cargo from now until, because that got to go. Are the other non-operational ships berthed at Porter's Key dock being told to move as yet? My friends in low places is telling me, yes, they have been given notice and they've been given time to be out of there. And the contingency is being put in place to be able to move them if they don't move on their own free will. So, Porter's Key dock, based on information now, ain't nothing happened until it happened. But Porter's Key dock, as far as those ships are concerned, is a place that is being sorted out one step at a time. And we're going to give it a couple of weeks. But while we move on, we're going to be watching. We're going to be watching. And, are the fishing boats and tugboats and non-mail bag holding vessels being told to move as yet? Have the owners of those containers stored at Porter's Key dock from eons ago being told to move them to their own private facilities over the hill? Is there a dock master for Porter's Key? And if so, why is he or she not performing their role as a dock master should? You get boats blocking up the bridge. You get containers all over the place. You get boats at the dock ain't moving, and they sitting there. You get tugboats, but even no, they shouldn't even be there to Prince George Porter's Key dock. So I would hasten to believe that there is no dock master. And if there is a dock master, that dock master needs to start putting his foot down. How many port staff are stationed at Porter's Key? And why are they not doing what is required of them to maintain order at the site? So, if you got crew, you need to have a dock master, eh? And if you got a dock master, you need workers. Because collectively, they're supposed to make sure that order is kept at Porter's Key. So we can start looking to see if people wait there and if they're moving around and if they're approaching these people and all the rest of that. Because Porter's Key have to be organized. And I am not going to stop until we have organization at Porter's Key. You got to get mad at me. I don't care. When I worked at the port department during the late 1990s, dear listener, any unauthorized vessel at Porter's Key dock was towed by tugboat to the lighthouse depot and secured there in safekeeping until the owner paid a fine to collect his boat. Why did this stop? Of course, the port department no longer owns tugboats, eh? But they can hire one, dang it. Hire one, like how the police hires private wreckers to tow our vehicles when we park at the wrong spot in downtown Nassau. Get up off your fat backsides and do what we are paying you to do. Get Porter's Key fixed, Mr. Dockmaster, Mr. Port Controller, Mr. Permanent Secretary, Mr. Chairman of the New Providence Port Authority Board, Mr. Deputy Chairman and members of the New Providence Port Authority Board, Mr. Minister of Transport, and yes, even you, Mr. Prime Minister, concertedly, you guys got to figure this out. The time for fluff is over. Let's get Porter's Key dock fixed. Yes, a little hot. I'm almost big hot. And with reasons, people. Now, moving on to zero carbon emissions by 2050. Check out what this U.S. legislation is doing to incentivize terminal operators to attain zero emission carbon equipment. And it reads, and this is coming directly out of some feeds, a new bipartisan bill was introduced in the U.S. House of Representatives designed to maximize investment in equipment and infrastructure used by the United States private marine terminal operators. The bill was designed to provide tax incentives to help support the terminals as they transition to low emission carbon handling equipment. How will this be accomplished? The legislation would make it possible for private terminal operators to defer tax on operational income and income from the sale of existing cargo handling equipment. You sell it, no tax involved. You buy new stuff, no tax involved. The income would be deposited into a capital construction fund approved by MARAD, that's the Maritime Administration of the U.S., and can only be withdrawn on a tax-deferred basis for the purchase or construction of new cargo handling equipment. The bill does not exclude, or should I say the bill does not include, appropriation funds for the purchase of the equipment. So what the U.S. has decided to do is they know that if you get forklifts, gantry cranes, well, maybe not gantry cranes, them things hard to replace, straddle carriers, cranes that use fossil fuel. Try and change them to battery-operated stuff, right? That do not emit anything. And when you change them, you will be credited. You'll be credited by not paying tax, and you'll be credited even by the World Bank or by the United Nations for the amount of emission that you are no longer discharging into the environment. So it's a big win, and it's a big incentive. And it's something that we need to consider not only in the Bahamas, but worldwide. Give incentives to protect the world from global warming. Global warming is a serious thing. Now, mid last week, there was a post that the North Atlantic posted its highest average temperature on record, just shy of 77 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the sea now. There is still a month to go in the summer season, and the record will likely be broken again before the year out, According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, we call it NOAA. I know it as NOAA, all right? They're the atmospheric people in the U.S. They deal with weather, especially maritime weather. So you see there, listener, the temperatures are now taking stabs at that devastating threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius, which, once exceeded, will likely result in catastrophic outcomes, such as the complete flooding of low-lying countries such as ours. But some school of thought out there believes that if, and a big if, efforts to reduce carbon emissions fail, in other words, all of what the United Nations and IMO and ICAO and them trying to do for the planes and the ships and all the cars going electric, if all that still fail and we still look like we're going to pass 1.5 degrees centigrade, somebody thinks that there's a backup plan. Now, what could that possibly be? A geoengineering the controversial science of modifying the climate by artificial means. They have the options like fertilizing the ocean's phytoplanktons. You see these big words I don't normally use, but I'm reading this in the feed, so I got to read it, eh? So they're going to fertilize the phytoplanktons in the ocean with iron and make them absorb more carbon. They're going to install space-based mirrors. Would that make any sense? So you're going to install mirrors all around space, as much as you could put out there. What the mirrors can do? Simple. The mirrors are going to reflect the sun away from the earth. So that instead of that sun ray coming straight to the earth and hitting the earth and causing the earth to heat up, it's going to reflect back and only some of it will be hitting the earth, so the earth wouldn't heat up as much, eh? This is just what they're saying, right? They're also saying they would speed up the weathering of CO2 absorbing minerals at a vast scale. So they got minerals that absorb CO2, and they got plants too, like RC grass, what we keep talking about. So they're saying they could speed up the weathering of them. I don't know how they could do it technically, and I don't care. But this is what they're saying is a backup plan if because they can't allow the world to fail and go more than 1.5 degrees centigrade. We just can't do it, right? Because it's too devastating. While most of these are untested and potentially risky, one of them, man-made cloud seeding with SO_x. I don't know how you say that, SOX or SOX or SOX, has been in testing since the age of steam, and shipping is giving researchers the means to be evaluated. So, SOX emissions, the seed from the SOX emissions. Now, this is the high sulfur type emission, right? Okay, the seed from that cloud droplets, so they would cloud the droplets and make the air more reflective for as long as the droplets last. So when the sun is trying to shine through, the seeds coat the droplets in the air, and when the sun hit them, it sends the sun back. It don't really reach the earth no more. So what they're saying is those emissions from ships cause the environment to turn the sun back a bit and make the air more reflective for as long as the droplets last. Bright white ship tracks. When you see a ship moving, like how you see the plane in the air, and then you see that white tail behind the plane trying to figure out, well, what the plane putting out? No, that's just things from these droplets, the seeds from the high sulfur fuel mixing with these droplets, and you have that big white thing that reflects the sun back away from the earth, right? That's all that is. So the bright white ship tracks seeded by sulfur dioxide from stack exhaust are a common demonstration of this effect and can be seen in satellite photos of the North Atlantic. This added reflectivity has a localized cooling effect. So because you had this reflection being born out of the seed cloud droplets, it has some type of effect for cooling that area wherever it happens, right? So recent research suggests that the SOX from the stack exhaust may cause a cooling effect even when the track is too thin to be visible by the naked eye. And it may have a more substantial impact on temperature than previously thought. So, what is being suggested here, dear reader, is that when the IMO mandated that all ships desist the use of high sulfur fuel back in 2020, the IMO don't do that. The IMO ain't playing, They moving forward to make this thing happen because the IMO is part of the United Nations. They can make this happen. The resulting impact is the emissions of seeds that made cloud droplets more reflective also discontinued. So prior to 2020, we were having trails and trails of these seed droplets that was reflecting the sun in those areas, and those areas were cooler. So what the scientist is saying is since that stop in 2020, we now in 2023, we realizing that the ocean is getting warmer. So they saying that that had a significant impact. Mind you, that was still putting plenty carbon in the air, which causing a bigger problem in my opinion. But this we need to think about all of what's going on, right? So again, it's saying since IMO made that mandate for all ships to resist the use of high sulfur fuel in 2020, the resulting impact is the emissions of seeds that made cloud droplets more reflective also discontinued. So the sun's rays that were being reflected prior to 2020 from the ship's path, reflected away from reaching landfall, are now reaching the earth and causing the oceans to get warmer. Now, this is not Glenn Bain's view. So don't hold me hostage and say, boy, you talking foolishness. This came from Mr. Tianlei Quan, an atmospheric physicist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center. This is his views. And I don't know if you could knock that. Mind you could say it's still more devastating if you allow it, and which I would agree with. But he's just saying that since you stop that, now the ocean getting even warmer. But if we reach net zero in time, we wouldn't even have to worry about that. But they saying it's a catch-all if that, along with those other three things, if the world don't achieve the objective of by 2050 making sure we don't reach beyond that rise beyond that 1.5 degrees centigrade, eh? So at this point, I'd like to say, give a little shout out to my good number one fan. Everybody know Annie Mae is my number one fan up there in Freeport. 90 years plus and rocking steady. Good night, Annie Mae. Our sponsors for the night show are One-on-One Pharmacy and also Island Care Pharmacy. You know the deal. You walk in their stores, everything is kapoka. My good little cousin Shantia McBride and the team of One-on-One Pharmacy in Nassau and Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport, they got it going on. They'll fill your subscription at the store or send you refills via the online site oneononepharmacy.com. We know where the three locations are: East Street South, Charles Sanders Highway, and opposite Scotiabank in Freeport. When you walk in, they treat you with royalty. Say hello to my good cousin Steph when you go to Freeport now, because that's where she hanging out. I hailed her the other day. Well, Steph is my good cousin. All Roll Avenue people, eh? Of course, let them know that Maritime Matters sent you, and they might just take off a little something for you, eh? They might. You never know, so try. And we are also sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection. We provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services. To the listening audience out there, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the man behind the controls, our wonderful producer. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you tonight the insatiable, the man with the power. My friend Lester Cox used to say, drum roll. He is fully able, quite capable. The one and only Mr. Craig Gibson. Yes, he ain't giving me no salute because I can't even see him. You're listening to Maritime Matters, people. On this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters as weekly at 19:30 every Tuesday here on Love 97. Purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to the maritime in the Bahamas and to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from domestic and international maritime feeds. Halfway through the show, we would normally open the phone lines. Unfortunately, the remainder of our show today is pre-recorded, and in that vein, we will not be able to accept calls. We're talking maritime, people. You are listening to Maritime Matters. At this point, we move to a break, and when we return, we will engage tonight's most special guest. So please, stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I reserve no hesitation in introducing tonight's guest. While he is currently based at St. Lucia, he hails all the way from one of the second best cities on earth, the great city of Freeport. Of course, Nassau being the greatest. This cat, ladies and gentlemen, comes highly qualified, well-informed, and vastly experienced, particularly in occupational health, safety, and environmental studies. He sits a professional that, by way of strategic undertakings, worked his way across a litany of health, safety, and environmental management positions, to being the top boss at a very strategic oil storage facility in the Eastern Caribbean. In true fashion, this cat traversed the mountaintop, wrestled down the booted dean, and chewed on the beetle nut. So brace yourself for quite an interesting and informative maritime discussion I am privileged to present to you tonight. All the way from humble beginnings in 8 Mile Rock, Grand Bahama, Mr. ONEIL WILDGOOSE. Brother ONEIL, welcome to Maritime Matters.
Thank you, Cap. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm in top shape and getting better, my friend.
That's good.
We're so pleased to finally get a professional in this area that we've been talking about for the past month or two, actually with us to explain some things that we've been talking about, but we weren't able to explain the way a professional would. So, tell me, which island, where were you born? Let's get some background on who ONEIL Williams might be.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is ONEIL Jermaine WILDGOOSE. I hail from Freeport, Grand Bahama, specifically 8 Mile Rock. I represent 8 Mile Rock. I've lived there most of my life. I went to 8 Mile Rock High, Broad Hill Primary. I started out my professional career at the Freeport Container Port, where I spent 16 years working there in health, safety, and environmental. And I left in 2013 and went into the oil and gas industry, where I held positions of process safety specialist, safety engineer, and more specifically in Freeport, I was the health, safety, security, and environmental manager at Freeport. We knew it as BOCO until 2013, and then I did an international transit into the island of St. Lucia, where I'm at now. I took over there, and I was responsible for the maintenance department, projects department, health, safety, security, environmental department. And then, as of in 2022, I took the position to run the whole entire facility here for Buckeye, which is an international company located mostly in the United States of America, but we also have 3 terminals, one in the Bahamas, we know it as BOCO, one in St. Lucia, and then also one in Puerto Rico. I'm stationed here in St. Lucia.
It's very good, and I have to say thanks to you for giving me the warm welcome of St. This is my second time in St. Lucia, but this is the first time I was here on vacation. The first time I came, I was doing a course, really a seminar, so I wasn't able to get around as much as I can now. And thanks to you, man, you really exposed me to what St. Lucia is all about. And though I liked it the first time, I love it now, and I'm sure I'm going to be back. So thank you very much for not only giving us this opportunity to express your knowledge or tap into your knowledge on carbon credits and what you guys are doing to meet net zero by 2050 and all the rest of that goodness. But, also for showing me a good time and showing me what St. Lucia is all about. So let's go back to Freeport, to 8 Mile Rock, back to who your parents are, who are your siblings, your childhood friends, anybody you wish to highlight before we get into all the details of the technical stuff.
Yes. So my mother and father, they've been married for 52 years.
Wow.
I came from a family of 8, to which I am number 6. So I have 3 sisters and 2 brothers above me, and then 2 little sisters underneath me. My parents, Junior, which is John Cedric WILDGOOSE, the second, and my mother is from Nassau. She's from Fort Charlotte, all the way in South Street, born and raised down there. She was originally Charlene Miller, and now she's Charlene WILDGOOSE. She moved to Freeport after being married, but she took all of us, and all of us was born in Nassau.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. I thought you was a Freeport boy.
Yeah. Well, I was born in Nassau,
But
raised in Freeport, because
Right.
the Princess Margaret Hospital was where you take your children in the late 70s.
So when you were born in Nassau, your parents wasn't residing in Freeport as yet? Or
Yes.
your mommy came to Nassau to have
My
to
mother went to Freeport to have her kids. To Nassau, sorry.
Okay.
Yes,
So
to
so
have her
she's
kids.
already based in Freeport.
Yeah,
okay.
because her mom was there, her brothers, sisters, all her family.
Everybody's in Nassau, yeah.
Yeah, they're from
Okay.
Otis.
Wonderful.
And all of that. I'm not too familiar with Nassau because I was raised in Freeport,
yeah.
but I was born there in Nassau.
Okay.
My sisters and brothers. My brother is John Cedric WILDGOOSE the third. He's the district superintendent of the Church of the Nazarene for the whole Bahamas and also Turks and Caicos Island.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, so we grew up in
That's
church.
your bigger brother or your younger brother? No, you
No.
only have two sisters behind you.
Yes, so that's
okay.
he's right above me.
Okay. So
yeah.
when you follow.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my older brother John, and we call him Seti. He lives in Freeport. All of us lives in Freeport. Besides I have two sisters. They still reside in Nassau, and I have a brother. He lives in Exuma. Growing up in 8 Mile Rock, I'm proud of where I'm from.
Okay. None of your siblings are now in 8 Mile Rock then?
My mother and my father lives in 8 Mile Rock, and my little sister and her husband
Okay.
lives in 8 Mile Rock. So
Okay, very good.
once I get home,
You're still anchored in 8 Mile Rock?
oh yeah, every Sunday I go there for dinner.
dinner, yeah.
Yeah, see my mom, see my father. Yeah,
Very
we
nice.
have a wash house down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, my father runs it, a couple of apartments and stuff like that.
Well, you all come from money.
No. Actually, we came from real humble beginnings.
Yes,
coming
yes.
a big family of 8.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of children
Yeah,
to
siblings.
take care of. And
Not much rooms in the house. Maybe like 3 rooms, a lot of bunk beds. Growing up in public school and all of that, I remember clearly. But I remember that my mother and father, they toiled with us.
So why did you choose to engage in the oil and gas industry? Because you started out, I think, in containers, eh?
Yes, yeah. So I basically had 2 jobs in my life. I started out at the Freeport Container Port back in the day. When I came out of school, they recruited me. They sent me to live in England for a little bit before the container terminal stayed.
Just Felixstowe.
Felixstowe, yes.
I remember when that
Yeah.
phase came around.
Yes,
we were sending a lot of people to Felixstowe.
I
My good
was-
friend Carl Norwich was I think he went to Felixstowe as
Yeah,
well.
I think Carl is from Nassau.
Oh yeah, we were on the defense force together.
Yeah, so Carl Knowledge, I went with him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
very
I
good.
went
Yeah.
with him, and he also was my operations manager at the time.
Okay.
At the container
Wonderful.
port. And
Wonderful.
I, I was young, I was maybe 19 or 18, 19. They recruited me. They took a chance with me. They sent me over with a group of guys, the first set, and I built my career from there.
So you didn't finish college at 19?
No, I was in school. I finished BTVI and I was in COB. I took a break. I went over there. All of the trainings from the container port was maybe a little over a year. I was,
that
back
long?
and forth. Yeah,
Wow.
back and forth there.
Just when the container port was really getting started?
Yes, that's before the cranes was erected.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the first time I saw the cranes was when I came back for a visit. But
Yeah.
I was already operating those.
He was already
those-
training and
Yeah,
moving
in England. Yeah, I was.
So did all of the crane operators back then do like a year before they could come and operate the gantries?
Well, the training is a little bit intense.
Yeah, okay.
It takes you a couple of years before you really experience enough to be trusted.
Right.
As far as safety is concerned, because it's a dangerous job.
Yeah, you
the
gotta be
the
spot on.
transshipment. Yeah, you can't make a mistake there. Most of them they would go over 2 months and then come back, and then they would do ongoing training.
Okay.
By the time,
on-site training.
Yeah, the issue with us when we first started wasn't any cranes there, and so we were over there doing our on.
Plus, you
shift.
didn't have
Yeah.
anybody to show you anything because
Yeah.
you were the first set.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then so we went to different ports.
Right.
I had the privilege of going to the port in Rotterdam, in Italy, in Rossano, in Italy. That's the South Italy, and I worked there for a little bit. And I moved on to to Baco, which is the Bahamas Oil Refinery Company, and I was doing a lot of process safety as it pertains to
So
project.
how did you transition from container port to Baco?
It was tough. It was tough. The transition wasn't easy because, Barco was filled with history.
History, and you're dealing now with oil.
Yeah, we deal now with oil.
Which is something totally different from containerized cargo.
Yeah, but safety is safety.
Safety is safety, but when you get a tank farm compared to a container port hub, that's like a different kind of safety. Different level of safety.
Well, it's different hazards.
That's right.
Without considering risk, yeah, you could have a catastrophe. So I would say that safety is connected to everything. Personal safety, on the job safety. You can get technical with it.
Yeah.
But the foundation of it is always risk control. You want to lower your risk, no matter. I don't care where you're working. You could be working at super wash or super suds.
There's still a lot of risks that you want to minimize. Yeah?
Yep, risk exists, and you have to identify hazards, and you have to lower risk, and then you have to put things in place for this.
Right.
That's the principle of it. So I enjoy doing it, for a long period of time. But the truth is, I always want to grow. So I
always looking for new ventures.
Yeah, in 2018, they invited me up to St. Lucia for an interview.
I was going to ask you how you got to St. Lucia from Barco.
Yeah, so they invited me here.
They invited you without you applying? You knew about it beforehand and applied, or?
Nah, someone called me and they asked me if I'll be interested in doing an interview. So I was like, sure. So they sent me over here and in 2018, and I interviewed for the job of maintenance manager.
Right.
And believe it or not, I didn't get it. Like, I felt like the interview was good, but they chose someone else, and apparently it didn't work out, so they asked the guy that was retiring if he would remain on a year.
Okay.
And a year later, I got a call again, and they were like, man, would you go and do another interview for this job? They're still interested in you.
Would you consider?
Yeah. So I came over. Apparently, at that time, they had two major accidents here.
Wow.
Where a JLG, which is a man lift, it turned over with a guy. It almost killed him. I came over to do an investigation in that. And then I went back home, and another incident where a front-end loader lost control and ran into the security building. I came over for that, and then I interviewed at the same time, and I never left, really. So I was basically here working, and they interviewed me, and then they offered me a job while I was here.
Right.
And I went home and spoke to my family. And tell them we have an opportunity to come to St. Lucia and live. The assignment was only 3 years at the time. Wow. But what happened in 2019 that everyone know about is the hurricanes.
Yes.
And it separated me and my family for a bit, because after the hurricane was COVID. And once COVID came, I was here, I was separated. They were there. And, I came over and I ran maintenance and also health, safety, security, and environmental. And I did that for 3 years. And at the end of my 3-year stint, my manager, my director at the time, she said she wanted to retire. And, I was like, man, you're 55. Why are you retiring now? And, I was like, you're 55 years old. You're 55 years old and you want to retire now. And she retired. And then they decided that they were going to offer me the job to actually run the whole terminal as a senior manager of the terminal, and that's what I did. I became the senior manager of St. Lucia Terminal, and I have a great group of people over here. I'm representing the Bahamas. They're not too familiar with us. A lot of people are confused with Bahamians. They believe that we are Americans for some reason. They call us people from foreign, but I came over here. Right before I came over here, I actually went back to school again. I got another master's in engineering, in environmental and chemical engineering. I did that for a little bit because I wanted to be prepared. I wanted to be prepared for the job and project and maintenance and stuff like that. So I went back to school, got another degree from the University of New Haven in Connecticut. I finished that out over 2 years. You know, during COVID, it was rough. You know, travel stopped. You had to do a lot of remote training and a lot of traveling for lab work and stuff like that. But I was able to accomplish a master's degree in engineering,
Right.
chemical and environmental. And the rest is history. I'm here. Like I said, I have about 100 people here underneath me. I'm the only expat. Everyone else is from this country.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there are no other expats at that plant.
No.
That's excellent.
Yeah. At the moment, when I came, it was 3 of us.
Yeah, because you took over from an American lady.
Yes, and she retired.
Uh-huh.
And the maintenance manager, he's also American. Both of them, well, she was not from Hess Terminal that we bought it from.
Right.
But she came from a Chevron, I think, and she decided that she wanted to retire early and spend time with her family.
Right.
And she wanted to leave, so
Once you turn 55 in the U.S., you're a senior.
yeah, yeah,
I couldn't say I blame because the benefits of us.
yeah,
And that's. I mean, it created an opportunity, obviously, for you.
yeah.
But to see that they're going to now move from having an American in charge to going to a Caribbean country to bring in somebody to be in charge, that's stunning.
Yeah.
Because
they took a chance.
Have they ever used anything other than Americans prior to you coming in and running it?
No.
Hess would have always had an
always
American.
had American. Buckeye had an American.
So this is an icebreaker.
Yeah, I'm the first person.
The first non-American to run that plant.
Yes, I am.
You see the achievement we got?
Yeah.
That is excellent. Congratulations to you, my brother.
Thank you.
Now, we talk a little about safety. We talked about security, a little nitty-gritty piece of it, the ISPS stuff. And what I really want to get at is the environmental side of it. And mainly so because, the world is now experiencing this ongoing heat wave. They refer to as global warming as a result of all this carbon being emitted. And the world is now seeking a way out. And not because they don't think it's a good idea to have all this carbon emission, but because if the carbon continues to emit the way it is now, by 2050 we will pass that threshold, that 1.5 degrees centigrade threshold that will cause the ice in the North and South Pole to melt, oceans to swell, and of course, countries like the Bahamas to be swallowed. So it's not a matter of if we want to do things, it's a matter of when we're going to do it. And now they have milestones, they have mandates, and your facility being an oil facility, Buckeye St. Lucia, it's a state-of-the-art international crude oil storage and transshipment facility. So you as a young Bahamian happened to land a top job as senior manager of operations at this valuable international terminal. Your facility has the storage capacity of just below 10 million barrels. It's like 900 and something million barrels of just crude. How much carbon would you say is being constantly emitted via this amount of crude oil? Is it a tiny amount? Consider it a significant amount or a large amount?
A very good question. I would lean towards a little amount based on the technology that we've put in place. Initially in the oil and gas...
Now, prior to making corrections or adjustments to minimize carbon emissions, what would a typical facility this size emit just from the cargo being stored there? Don't give it a volume. Just say it's a tiny bit, maybe a significant amount.
Well, oil is stored in atmospheric tanks, so emission continues.
It's ongoing.
Yeah, I mean, especially in the older days when you would use cone roof tanks and stuff like that.
Right.
Most of them, they have consistent emission because the basis of that is, you have flash releases, you have standing releases of emissions, and that's normal based on fossil fuels.
does this oil have to breathe? I mean,
It basically does, or it expands.
it expands and contracts,
So
while that is happening, carbon is coming up.
Yeah, it releases actually because they're atmospheric tanks, so it has to maintain the atmospheric pressure.
Okay. Good.
So once the atmospheric pressure goes to a certain amount, it has to relieve itself, just like humans.
Yeah. Wasn't there a time when those tanks were not covered at Baco? Because I remember when they started putting the domes. I don't know.
Yeah.
So domes is a different type of cover, or that's the first time they covered them?
The dome is a secondary safety measure.
So that's not the actual cover.
Now,
so you have a cover floating in there.
Beneath the dome is an internal floating roof.
Okay.
For most of the domes, but the earlier tanks wasn't domes. It was cone roof, and so once most of them was fitted with PD, pressure relief valves.
Right.
So once the pressure reaches a certain amount, it relieves itself, and then it stops. Because that's the only way to stop like odor. The odor threshold is really low. It's below 1 part per million. So
those are the spurts as opposed to always seeping out.
Yeah, and with technology, they designed the internal floating roof, and what the roof does is it will vent. It will vent until the roof really starts to float. Once the roof starts to float, the roof conceals the emissions.
Okay.
It doesn't stop it, but it conceals
put a
it.
glove over it.
Yeah, to minimum.
Right.
And so, but the advantage of being here is that all of our crude tanks are internal floating roofs. They're the largest in the world. They store about 750,000 barrels.
So all of them got floating roof.
Internal floating roof, yes.
What do you mean by internal floating?
So you wouldn't see them from the outside, and so they're basically set up within the shell, the interior shell.
Right.
And once the oil starts to pump to the bottom, it reaches to the roof, and it lifts the roof, and the roof holds basically the emissions down.
Okay.
It's not to the point where
not foolproof. Yeah.
No, especially before most of the emissions will come before the roof starts to float.
Right.
And once the roof starts to float, the vacuum breakers close.
Okay.
Because before the roof floats, the vacuum breakers are
Kind of
open.
Right.
And so emission goes from there. And then once it starts to float, it really holds the oil down. And then the thing about oil is, at some point, the oil will reach its pour point. And once it reaches pour point, it pretty much seals itself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like it becomes thick, and emission really goes down. It doesn't go down to zero, but it goes down to a lot. But the oil and gas industry is inherited by emissions of volatile organic compounds,
right?
Which is carbon, a lot of methane.
Mainly carbon.
Yeah.
Primarily carbon. So what steps are being taken by your facility to offset the emittances via the stored crude? Obviously, you're not going to stop it, but even the little that is escaping on an ongoing basis, what steps are you taking to offset that?
Well, you offset it. You could recover it. So
you could recover it?
Yeah, vapor.
All of the carbon?
You can recover it and reuse it and keep reusing. Yeah.
Do you have a setup at your facility where?
No,
you don't have it.
We don't have a vapor recovery unit
right.
At my terminal, but we do have one in my. We have many, I would say, in our
systems.
Yeah, our systems and our
Buckeye
companies.
System,
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, we recover it. But at my facilities, we do have a combustor. So
what is that?
It's like a flaring system. Once the oil is coming in and it starts to vent, we burn it.
Yeah, but when you burn it, it's still sending carbon up.
Yeah, but it's not sending a lot of the volatile carbon up because, you are correct because...
because fire produces carbon.
Yeah, it's carbon dioxide and water.
It really releases carbon dioxide. It needs oxygen to burn. But
yes, you are correct. But, in the industry we're in, we concentrate a lot on nitrous oxides and a lot of SOx and NOx, a lot of gases like xylene and pentane and butane and stuff like that is naturally found in crude oil. That could be hazardous to people. So our aim is to burn really hydrogen sulfides, because you know you have a sulfide oxide, you have all those things. You want to burn them.
So that's combustible chamber. What is it you all have?
Yeah, we have a combustor chamber.
And what the purpose of that is to burn off?
We have a blower, and by all means, the sound of blowing means something going out, but the blower pulls the air.
So it's like a vacuum, like
It's
a
a vacuum
suction.
blower.
Yeah.
So it goes into the vessel. At the same time it goes into the vessel, we pull it back to the chamber and we burn it.
But the vessel should have inert gas, eh? Over the cargo.
Yeah, but you don't inert during operations. You inert for travel.
Yeah.
So this is during it
When it's pumping.
because vapor has to displace itself. So it goes into the vessel.
Yeah.
And it vents through the mass riser, and that's the normal operation. So in this case, we'll common up the line, don't allow it to go through the mass riser, pull it back to the chamber and burn it, so that in the area of the vessel you wouldn't be producing a lot
Too much
of
emissions.
No.
It wouldn't,
Well,
yeah.
actually, in that case, we can burn up to 99.9% of it. We wouldn't really be producing
Of the carbon?
No, well,
Of the vapor.
of the vapor, but
Right.
it will still be producing carbon dioxide.
Yeah, okay. So your combustion chamber is actually near the jetty, near the berth.
It's up on the 50-foot bench. It's 50 foot above the sea level.
Okay,
But
so
we
it's
have
up
lines.
there where
Yes.
the tank farmers.
Yes, we have it right there, and it has it has a strong blower. I don't know in CFMs, but I'm
But it's pretty strong.
pretty strong to
So
pull.
it pulls most of the stuff.
Oh yeah, it's a state of the art. I think going back thinking about it is a very lucrative and expensive project that we did.
Okay. So you get rid of some of the carbon. This would be the one from the ship directly, not really from your tank farm.
No. From the tank farm, it's normally emissions of carbon dioxide, but as we know, carbon dioxide, which is also a greenhouse gas.
Yes,
to your
yes,
earlier
GHG,
point.
yeah.
The atmosphere really absorbs it quick.
Okay.
It's not a long-standing gas.
Yeah, but it absorbs it, but it's being emitted into the environment.
So
it's rendering to
the ozone layer being
to the thing that the United Nations is fighting now.
Yeah.
What we call it, global warming.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes, it is.
So, are you doing anything from your facility perspective to offset that emission?
Yes. So offsetting it, sequestration.
Sequestration.
Is
Well, you wouldn't have no plans to do that.
Well,
Like,
we
We'll have extractor fans.
We do have extractor fans. We have all those things in place on our tanks. But offsetting emissions is all based on making sure that the facility itself is more greener. So you may not concentrate on the actual emissions, but you can do other things within your industry, like when it comes to power, emissions, and stuff like that. We go kind of green there. We are not on the grid.
But you're not really net zero per se, not yet.
Nah, we're not.
You're
net
not even
zero.
close to that yet. You're working toward that.
Yeah, we are working towards it.
Because I think by 2050 you need to be net zero, eh?
I don't know if it,
According to the United Nations.
yeah, according to the United Nations, but I did a study when I was in college on this.
Yeah.
We kind of aim to be at least 50% lower.
Well, that's 2040. They wanted that to be 2050, but too much pressure is coming on because it's getting too fast.
Yeah.
They say now we can't wait till 2050 to be 50%.
Yeah.
We want to be 100%.
Yeah.
Well, you can still have emissions, but at least you get the offsets. Right?
Yeah.
You could buy carbon credits from the Bahamas and that type of thing.
Oh yeah. That is the future of the world, lowering. So most of my company, and also even with us, we're actually investigating going into solar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that will certainly help.
Yeah, because
Solar, wind farms.
yeah, well, wind farms won't work here.
Well, not here. You don't have no banks.
No, and hydro wouldn't work because of the elevation. But what would work is solar.
Yeah,
the
solar
investment in solar. As I stated, that we are not on the grid. We are not attached. We have engines, C-15s.
Oh, so you have your own power
Yeah,
arrangement.
we create
You
power
don't tap
here.
into the city power.
Oh no, we can run in this country. We can run 1/3 of the power here if we want to. So we have 6 engines, C-15. The power company has 10 that runs this country, and so but we run them in series, 2 at a time. Take out 2, service 2, start 2. That's our process. But we are now looking into creating.
Do you only need 2?
Yeah, 2
But
can
you have
run our
6.
facility. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to question you on that. I'm quite happy to hear that. But at least we know that it's really normally only 2 running.
Yeah.
So you're emitting from 2 main engines on your facility.
Yes.
Then you're emitting from your tank farm.
Yeah.
And then you have some emissions from the transfer from ship.
Yeah.
Well, at the terminal, your manifolds and all the rest of that. And you offset that how?
You offset it by.
But from the ship, you have the combustion chamber. But for the tank farm, you have no offset in place.
Yeah, but the tank farm we have internal floating roofs, so it.
Yeah, but you still have it.
Very
emittance.
Yeah, emittance still comes, but it's very low compared to. History will tell you that 30 years ago emissions was more.
Oh yeah, that's why we are where we are today.
But it never really stops. You're correct. We're doing what we can to offset it based on everything else. So, for instance, all of our systems is LED. All of our lighting systems is LED.
So that will reduce the emissions from your.
Yeah, we actually calculate.
power.
We actually do a calculation factor, monthly calculations on our fuel usage and our emissions. And also we try to offset it with.
Do you have any solar in places yet?
We have solar in certain areas.
You have plans to increase your solar capacity?
Yes. Well, let me be the first to say, that's a very difficult question to answer. But I would say that Buckeye is a very environmentally friendly operations. We know that inherently our business is not positive to the environment. However, we seek areas to reduce the carbon emission, and it's usually done through solar. So we are investigating a solar plant to change all of our power into solar, and even with the solar plant, you can produce hydrogen that could actually heat our product and use hydrogen.
Hydrogen for heating.
Yes. Okay. So there's a lot of technology
that will help to reduce, and will give you couple credits toward your zero.
So
your
that's
net
what
zero
we're
for
doing.
2050.
Yeah.
But you have plans to really increase your solar.
Yes, we have the capacity to do it. We're now in discussions on producing a solar plant that can run the terminal at least during peak hours. Yeah. So we can do that, and we could also sell or donate power.
Well, you can use it to offset for your tank farm.
Yeah, but maybe it'll be too much.
Okay,
so we'll actually give.
So if you got enough to sell, then of course you could.
It could be a business.
We don't want you to compete with the Bahamas too much, though. We're in the business of selling carbon right now. Carbon credits.
Which is good.
Carbon credits. So your experience over the years, particularly as HSSE manager, should have positioned you to contribute significantly to the United Nations pledge to avoid the catastrophic rise of 1.5 degrees Celsius barrier. Are you prepared to assist the Bahamas on a consultancy basis maybe, because obviously you're here, in meeting this anti-global warming mandate?
Oh, that's a very good question. So that question basically comes to Bahamian pride. I'm a Bahamian first, that's number one. So on a consultancy level, I would always assist. My experiences in oil and gas industry, I will always assist with, and my background in environmental engineering, environmental science, all of that, I will always try and assist, because I am a true believer in environmental protection. When I say a true believer, I believe that for future generations,
We have to protect.
we have to protect the environment or it will overheat. And so I would always assist. And when I say assist, I'm not talking about job-wise. I'm talking about knowledge base.
Yeah.
I'm talking about as a Bahamian, whether I'm living home or not at the moment, my experiences at some point, I will always try and assist.
Right. So let's speak to your professional qualification. You got a couple master's degree, I think. Any of these specifically deals with the environmental situation like we're faced with now?
Yes, so I have a master's in health safety, well, I would say environmental health safety and health and safety and security. I concentrated on renewable energy. I did my dissertation based on lowering, getting the world fact-based to dependency on renewable energies by 2050. I did my studies based on that. I also have a master's degree in environmental engineering, concentrating on environmental chemistry.
Right.
And so, well, as far as environmental engineering is concerned, my specialty is based on waste, and also I am certified in calculating emissions and how the atmosphere absorb.
Measuring the amount absorbed.
Yeah. So
you know the stuff.
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out because I was reading and researching and we in the Bahamas, as you know, or as I assume you would know, has the largest seagrass meadows in the world.
Yes, blue. It's blue.
It's blue carbon.
Yes.
But because we have the largest banks in the world.
Yeah.
And so because we have so much banks, we have so much seagrass in our banks. And as you know, the seagrass are responsible for the sequestration of carbon from the air into the soils of the seabed.
Yeah.
And they sit there for millenniums.
Yeah.
It sit there for like 30, 40,000 years.
Yeah.
Right? So we know that it's supposed to secure that and it maintains that balance.
Yeah.
Right? But of course, man decided they're going to do more emissions than the normal setup of the world, including those seagrasses, can sequestrate.
Yeah.
So, that being the case, because our seagrass is responsible for staggering amounts of CO2 extraction. Given your professional experience, would you say that this should make the Bahamas a wealthy country?
Yes. If you can obtain carbon credits, whether your carbon credits is international or if your carbon credits is done via company, I would say that the first target would be for companies that emit. Companies that usually emit will pay carbon credits to offset their emissions, and it's usually uncontrollable emissions. So if I'm a company, not just
like airplanes,
not just oil and gas, the automotive industry, power company,
the automotive industry,
the power company,
the ships,
vessels,
the planes,
all of them have uncontrollable emissions.
Well, the automotive industry is kind of like moving the batteries.
Yeah, but I'm glad you said that. But here's the scoop
so
about.
So that's not uncontrollable for the automobile.
Yeah, but
it will be I guess you call it uncontrollable for the industry that provides power when they plug in.
Yeah, but I mean I am of the opinion. I'm taking it that you want my personal view.
Yes, I want your professional view.
Okay, my professional and personal view.
Yes, sir.
Well, when I look at these industries and battery operated and all of that, it still stems back to power. And so while in the forefront, you would be saying that you're going to electrical cars.
Yes.
How is the electricity formed? It's still formed from fossil fuels.
Well, it don't have to be.
Well, you will have to explain to me in this day and time when it comes to electricity, the most advanced area. You could go to coal, You can go to diesel.
No, coal is emit carbon just like fossil fuel.
Yeah, but most electrical companies still burn fossil fuel. I mean, it's ludicrous.
Now they are, and it's been, and this is why they are also part of this net zero, right? Because the good thing about it is if your car is emitting the carbon monoxide, which it does from combustible engines, right? You basically, they emit 28% right now of carbon going in there worldwide, right? But if those cars are no longer emitting that, and the companies that charges those batteries or provide the power to charge those batteries are the only ones doing the emissions, they can minimize that emission. They can minimize that emission far better than the car would be able to do that.
That's a good point, but let's look at it from this perspective.
Right.
If the world moves to electrical cars at the moment,
well, they're moving there, yeah.
Then the fossil fuel industry has to increase to support that. So
no, well, I wouldn't say they have to increase to support that.
Well, how do you do it?
Well, I'm saying that they can take measures like you guys are, right?
Oh, yeah, correct.
To not emit as much carbon, although they're producing the same amount or more electricity.
Yeah, totally agree.
Because they can put up wind farms. To augment, of course.
Yes.
Because it's not going to be able to do everything.
No.
Plus, they got a lot of solar they can use.
Yeah.
Plus, they get companies now that are building plants with extraction fans, massive extraction fans. And they are sucking the air and filtering the carbon out of that.
Yeah.
And then they're converting that to either liquid or solid.
Yeah.
And then they store that deep in earth.
Yeah.
So all of these things are starting to happen to augment, and you got, of course, countries like the Bahamas and Australia, what are sequestering carbon all the time, so they can sell credits to some of these companies, right? And so the whole thing works better, more efficiently, and as time moves forward, can become even more proficient to moving toward net zero and eventually zero emissions.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. It's a collaboration.
Oh yeah, and time is important.
Yeah, a lot of the issues with it is political, of course.
Of course, especially in the Bahamas, eh? I don't know if you know about the situation in the Bahamas.
Well, I haven't been home for a little bit.
Well,
I try to keep up with what's going on.
No, but you're a Freeport fella. You ain't know much about NASA, know how. See
so NASA is the
I don't know what Freeport Power doing, right?
Yeah, they're using diesels.
Diesels?
Yeah,
not even bunker or fuel oil.
Well, bunker fuel is an old method.
But fuel oil.
Fuel oil is they're using fuel oil, but
not diesel, because diesel will kill you, price wise.
It would, but
cost wise.
At Freeport, most of the vessels. Now you're talking about the
power plant itself.
Nah, they have to be. They would be using diesel.
But we don't use diesel in NASA. We just have some diesels available on standby. Because when they say they got to use those diesel, our bill go way up.
Yeah.
Because diesel is far more expensive than fuel oil.
You're right, but fuel oil is it's more potent as far as...
No, less potent than diesel.
You think so?
Yeah, it's less potent than diesel because it really is a slow turning engine. It ain't burning as fast.
But we talking about fossil fuels.
All of those are fossil fuels.
And we opinionated by it.
Of
course, diesel is only a refined fossil fuel.
It's another level of
fuel oil. Fuel oil
all of them come from crude.
Fuel oil is also a refined.
Everything comes from crude. Gas, diesel.
Yeah, fuel oil is more viscous than diesel. Diesel flows better. Fuel oil is more thicker and viscous than crude oil.
Right.
But I wouldn't debate the argument which one is safer, but if you would ask me what I would rather
safer
do...
or less expensive? See, we ain't worrying about safety now.
You're talking about the cost.
I'm saying that when they use diesel.
No, fuel oil is much cheaper than using the
Yeah,
refined product because now you're using something that is finished.
But most facilities in the world, well, in the real world, because you know the Bahamas, we third world, we're not in the real world, right?
Yeah.
Most real world countries have moved to natural gas,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the reason why NASA in particular haven't moved to natural gas yet, somebody probably need to tell us. But I mean, I have an idea.
Well,
People making money off the fossil fuel and they don't want that to stop.
but we talk about natural.
So there's no real incentive.
Yeah, but
right now.
It's too expensive at the
No, it's
moment.
not too expensive if you can save money in the long run. You do the maths and
Yeah.
you realize that if Florida and Texas and all them could do it and they saving more money, for example, my daughter lives in Texas.
Okay.
Her light bill is less than $50 a month,
You're right.
right? Because they're dealing with natural gas.
Yeah.
So if they could make a profit and charge you less than $50 a month,
Yeah.
isn't that a win-win for everybody?
Yeah, I would say it's a win-win, but when we're talking about liquid petroleum and stuff like that, pressurized, like natural
gas and LPG, yeah.
Yeah,
But
we're talking about
mainly natural
propane,
gas.
natural gas,
Yeah.
all of the formation of that. The difference is in the United States of America, places like Texas and stuff, they have caverns, so they drill and have they produce natural gas. The issue with us is we'll have to store natural gas. And natural
We store an LPG now, and we can store natural gas just the way everybody else does.
Well, we store natural.
On the plant, on the BC plant. I'm not talking about the household now.
At very low level storage. When you're talking about real storage for natural gas or propane to support the country, we're talking about a big investment because the issue with the storage part is it's a pressurized tank. It's not an atmospheric tank.
We store a good volume of propane as we speak. I can tell you.
So you believe it's a good volume?
No, right now it supplies all the propane that NASA needs to operate.
I do agree with you.
And they have ships coming in from Trinidad.
But it's not
elsewhere.
it's not huge. I mean,
No, I'm saying it's adequate for what is needed.
But we
I am
can't-
saying that the only thing I'm looking at now is the BEC plant of Clifton Pier storing enough natural gas to keep those machinery going.
which is different. When we're talking about a natural gas storage, to run a power plant and a natural gas storage for consumption use, like right now, we do convert from natural gas to propane in most of our equipment in the Bahamas.
Right.
It's all based on pressure, so they're just taking a pin and changing the size of a pin. But when we're talking about storing natural gases and stuff like that, we're talking about a large investment as far as consumption because of
That's upfront.
because of the raised vapor pressure. It's
Upfront is going to be a big cost. Like most things you do,
Yeah.
upfront is your big cost.
it'll be huge.
Once it needs to be huge, but it's not going to be as huge as the bills they're racking up now.
Well, I do agree with you.
You know, and
do
everybody wins. They win. They'll have a new plan, ain't nothing breaking down. And then as time move on, that could be augmented with the solar.
Yeah.
And we got plenty of banks. We could do plenty of wind farms.
You think so?
We got plenty of banks. We got plenty of space to put wind farms.
We do, but
Right now, the U.S. is on the last piece of space to put a wind farm.
like producing and
Well, I mean,
holding is two different things, right? So you can produce the power through wind farm. I really don't believe that we have sufficient wind, but
our wind is not as strong as those places.
But once you produce it, now you have to actually bank it.
Yeah, that's what they do. That's what they do all over the world.
Yeah.
We don't have to be any different.
But let's get back. Let me touch a little bit back on your point.
Natural gas.
Yeah, with the natural gas, and which is good.
That's what that's what all the ships are now doing. As well.
Yeah. So I did offer a natural gas investment for the power company here.
Okay.
I was actually willing to do a refurbishment of their machinery, their engines into natural gas. I'll pay for it, everything.
Yeah. Could win. This Trinidad is close.
Yeah, but
They ain't got to come from far.
you're right. But the point of power and cost whether it's kilowatt hour. I don't know how I'm not too familiar how we do it, but I think that it's based on kilowatt hours.
Yeah.
How we all know that Nassau Power is a little bit cheaper than Freeport based on.
Oh, I don't know that.
Oh yes, it is.
Okay. Well, that Freeport dead then.
Yeah.
Power half dead.
Yeah. Well, it's only like one island and like 3 keys.
Okay. They have less volume.
Yeah, but the power company in Nassau controls the Bahamas. But I getting back to that, it's a heavy undertaking to go to natural gases. The storage of natural gas or an advanced storage of propane or whatever you to choose, what liquefied, whether it's butane, natural gas, propane.
Yeah.
It increased. Yeah, it
which is more poisonous.
It increased a level of health and safety automatically.
They now even go into ammonia as a source that emits very little carbon.
Yeah.
And they have ships now. They have engines now. They're preparing for ships that take ammonia. Now, I don't know where they can get all the supply from because you can find sources of ammonia.
Well, the greatest source of ammonia comes from the human body, and so
we ain't gonna get it out that.
Well, you can get it from
that wouldn't
sewer,
be enough, though.
Sewer system. No, they have places in the world.
From waste management plants.
Waste management plant can produce ammonia because the human body produces it.
Well, what kind of volume though? Because
a lot of volume.
You got over 50,000 ships out there.
But you got 6 billion people, and ammonia. I think it's volatile. I'm not sure if it's volatile.
It's not as volatile. It's because
but it is
not
organic. It is an organic
It
compound.
is.
And so it's always going to be.
Just got to find a way to capture it and store it.
Listen, I'm very impressed of your knowledge on it.
My knowledge?
Yeah, I am.
I've been doing a lot of research.
Yes, it's obvious you've been researching.
Yeah, I have to.
And you're tapping into areas that I think is necessary for discussion.
Oh, yeah.
Because the advancement of the world depends on this.
Yes, sir.
There are always going to be debates back and forth, and I appreciate that. The only debate I would say I have is time frame, because I'm looking at it from a professional area and what I think.
But you also have a mandate as a CEO of an organization that emits carbon to make sure that your organization doesn't get flagged in 2050 because you don't have a net zero operation going on with carbon emittance.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
So the emission factor on oil and gas produces fossil fuels. We know that. And one of the things I would like to say concerning it is that the basis of fossil fuel is crude oil, and crude oil is naturally created. It's not a process.
Yes, it's natural, just like coal and everything else. And when you
burn
them, they will emit carbon.
Coal can be processed.
Well, no. But it still have to come from the roots.
Nah, but I can make coal.
How? Out of what?
Charcoal is made.
Yes, but no, but it's not made from fabrication.
Yeah.
It's made from the tree roots.
Yeah, but I'm saying
it's made from the roots of trees.
You can process.
If you don't get the roots of the trees that has all that carbon, you can't make coal.
You can.
They have coal mines which are basically old tree roots.
Yeah.
Where they go and they take. Yeah. But what I'm saying is this is natural tree roots that stored the carbon and they turn it into coal.
I totally agree with you, but you can still process that.
You process
that's science.
You process most of your finished product.
Yeah, but I'm saying to you, you can process. You can set up a process to create. You can increase the natural lineage of how coal is produced through science, but with crude oil you can't.
That's you're comparing coal to crude oil.
Yes,
okay.
you can't.
There is where you're coming from.
There is no point in life when you can do it. You need very high pressure. You need millions of years of natural breakdown of rocks and ancient plants to produce crude oil.
Yes.
My point is, this will never stop. The production of crude oil will never stop. It's natural. we are benefiting from the crude oil.
Well, crude oil have to be extracted.
It has to be,
But I'm saying at some point that extraction is not going to be lucrative anymore.
yeah, but that's my point. Me and you making the same point. It's not going to be lucrative because of dependency.
No, because there's the lack of dependency.
Yeah, it's
you're right.
It's not the fact that it's never going to stop being created.
No, it'll always be making.
Yeah, but
to extract it, what it'll cost to extract crude oil, right? And not only are you going to extract the crude oil, but who burns the crude oil have to pay for the emissions.
which is dependency on it.
So it's not going to make any sense.
So I totally agree with that.
So Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, they're going to go broke.
Yeah,
They're all going to be broke after 2050.
because they are not a renewable fossil
And the Bahamas
source of energy.
is going to go rich. Because we're going to be the ones that are sequestering all the carbon out of the environment. Well,
out
of the atmosphere.
I wouldn't say atmosphere because
yeah.
if we're talking about our large supply of seagrass,
Right.
we're talking about ocean carbon and sediment carbon. There's always
No, we're talking about seagrass itself. Actually, do you know that the seagrass consumes 35 times faster than the rainforest,
than forestry.
forestry.
Yes, I totally know it. But
So we're going to be sequestering on an ongoing. We'll be doing it every day, every hour, every minute now.
Yeah.
But we're not being paid for it. We're now saving the earth in our country, and we're not getting a dime for it. So you mentioned, and I'm glad you brought this part up. You mentioned that you have an idea, or you've done studies on how we're going to measure how much carbon is being sequestrated by the seagrass, by the mangroves. What type of equipment is used in that?
well, sequestration.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in measuring the amount of carbon actually being sequestrated. Yeah.
Well, that calculation has already been done. So
You mean for the Bahamas?
for the world. So
No, but we still need, for us to get our carbon credits, we would need to verify that this amount of carbon is being taken out of the environment in this 1 acre of seagrass.
Yeah. So it's to my point, it's already been calculated. So more than likely, if it's measured by an acre,
Right.
so seagrass pulls 30 to 50 times more faster
Than the
forestry.
Yes.
There is a calculation that already been done on the amount of carbon dioxide that a seagrass pulls from the ocean.
But you can't just say, okay, since it's 35 times and this is 1 acre, if they get $10, well, right now it's like $20-something
You talking about credits?
a ton. Yeah, how are we going to measure? Because first of all, you gotta have an established
Amount,
amount that you verify.
Yeah.
Because you got to get auditors to come in and verify that yes, this amount is actually being taken out of the environment.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't
That's
think
what you got to do.
I don't think you have
You wouldn't
to
be
do
able
it.
to. Well, how do you know?
Because it's already known.
No, you say it's already known, but you got different
take
classes of seagrass.
Yeah,
right?
take my
You
point. Take my point.
No, but what I'm
we're
saying
talking
is-
about the Bahamas seagrass, which is we're talking about
Top
blue,
shelf,
blue,
top shelf.
top, the
Yeah,
best
but
in the
all
world.
seagrass is blue, yeah.
So all of them have already been tested in laboratories as far as what they absorb. What I'm saying to you is the absorption part is not what you're looking for. You're looking at the credit part. The credit part is a legislation. It's all going to be based on whatever committee or department decides it.
No, this is happening already at the United Nations level,
It,
right?
it has, but what
This
I'm
is
trying to
happening
say,
already. We already have an act in our country
Okay.
to deal with carbon credits.
Yes.
But what I'm saying to you is based on my studies and my research,
Yeah.
right? What is being said is you can't just say we in the Bahamas have 2,000 credits, because one credit is 1,000 pounds, right? We have 2,000 credits just for this little area here.
Well, why not?
Because that have to be verified by international auditors.
Yeah.
And before the international auditors come in, You got to set up your measuring tool, record all the details so that they could come and double check. So you're not going to say, oh, that's measured already. It don't work like that. Right? Now,
I really think it does work like that, but I will get your,
Well, based on research.
I'll take your research point. The reason why I say that, I do believe what you're saying, but I'm looking at it from a scientific background, because I mean, we're talking of, you switched to now science, and I'm saying to you that sequestration is a calculation based on an engineering perspective. So say, let's just hypothetically.
No, based on a science perspective.
Well,
because you need tools to measure.
You're right. I use engineering, but engineering is science. The
to some extent, yeah.
No, well, you just forced me to give you the definition.
I'm saying why I'm saying scientific, but really I should say environmental.
Yeah, well, it still goes back. Engineering uses math and science to solve problems.
No, but the environmental testing.
Yeah, it's
uses equipment.
Yeah, it's
now the type of equipment they use. And I heard them mention them. I can't tell you right now as we speak, right? But they do have measuring equipment for the amount of carbon that is absorbed out of a certain environment area.
I totally agree with you.
And those equipment have to be brought out to the site. The measurement have to be done and recorded. An independent auditor that have to come behind all of that and verify that yes, this measurement is correct. And then the Bahamas could say, for this area, these are our measurements and everything in place. This is the amount of carbon credits that we, because again, one credit is 1,000 pounds. This is the amount of carbon credit we have for just this area. World Bank, you already got the $4 trillion to pay countries that are doing things to take carbon out of that environment. We, the Bahamas, because a study was done already by the University of Michigan. They came to the Bahamas. They did some measuring, right? And they determined that based on what they have gathered from their experiments and measurements, the Bahamas is set to achieve at least $156 billion every year.
That's fair.
Right? Now, the World Bank is putting aside $4 trillion. The Bahamas is the largest in the world for seagrass, and we got plenty of mangroves too.
Yeah.
Right? In fact, 62% of the entire Caribbean, the Bahamas has.
And I totally agree with that.
So if we are set to get, and it could be 1.5 or 0.5 of 156 billion. Let's say we get 100 billion, or we may get 200 billion. But with all the money, we got to be wealthy. We got to be rich. We got to be like the oil countries now.
Yeah.
Because the cost to run the Bahamas is less than 10 billion a year. So what are we going to do with the next 90 billion? Well, of course, we got to do some more development, come to first world status. But even then, you still have 150 billion left. You think the people can get some of that?
Yeah.
Well, we'll be able to afford to pay the police now $100,000 a year.
Yeah.
We'll be able to afford to pay all government workers big bucks. Right? So having a Bahamian passport will mean like having the passport for Saudi Arabia back in the day when I was in college.
Yeah.
Well, I call it military college, right? Same place where the Queen and the King and them go to train to be naval officers. That's where I trained. And we had a couple groups. They call us international classes. The English-speaking people like Jamaica, all the West Indians, along with the Indians and people from Sri Lanka and Sudan, all of us would be in one group, right? Then they got the next group with Arabs. Then they get the group with just Brits. And the ones with the Arabs, you had the Prince of Oman, the future king of Kuwait, Saudi Arabian prince. A bunch of them coming because those kings want their sons to be militant. So they send them to that.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, all of them has failed. Well, I wouldn't say all. Most of them has failed. But they still get a blight when they reach back and they're still in their armed services.
Yeah.
And those guys at the time, while I was making about $6,500 a year, my paycheck used to be small, right? Couple $100 a month. But I was a midshipman, just gone off to school, and we didn't have to spend no money because the college provides you to uniform, all your food, everything is provided. So I saved quite a bit of money. When I came back, I could buy a car. But their salary was like $30,000 a month, US dollars, while they were in training. And we were like, well, okay, what that country get oil? You know, that's how the Bahamians could be about 5 years from now. You're going to have to come back home. I'm ONEIL.
I have to come back home. I will come back home.
The money you're making over here, if you work in the Bahamas, you probably get paid 3 or 4 times that amount.
Yeah. And you made some great points. Of course, Cap. A lot of them are debatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only go in by what the research is telling me. And the research itself could be debatable.
Yeah, everything is debatable.
Everything is debatable.
Everything is debatable in the world, but I do agree about one thing. The Bahamas is a great source of seagrass.
Yeah.
Seagrass sequestration is one of the greatest means of absorbing carbon from the atmosphere that falls, whether it's in sediments or the ocean.
And mangroves, we got a lot of mangroves.
Yes,
too.
mangroves.
And they do the exact
also.
same thing.
But seagrass is number one.
No. Mangroves, seagrass, and salt marshes are on par.
Yeah,
Those 3 are on par.
But
you have way more seagrass than mangroves.
Well,
because you got a big stretch.
They can be affiliated in.
They are in many cases. They are.
Like
one need the next.
Science. Yeah. But
you see that northern coast of Grand Bahama, that whole northern coast of Grand Bahama.
Yeah.
All of that is basically mangroves.
Yeah, and I would agree with that.
The whole western coast of Andros.
I totally agree with your thoughts, and I believe that as Bahamians, I believe our natural resources is the future of the world.
And you are indeed correct on that, my brother. And with that said, we have to bring this lively show to a close. I take this opportunity to thank my wonderful guest, Senior Manager at Buckeye St. Lucia Crude Oil Terminal, the illustrious ONEIL WILDGOOSE. I also wish to thank you, our listening audience, for continuing to support the show. And finally, I wish to thank our sponsors. In the names of Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, 1-on-1 Pharmacies on East Street and Charles Sanders Highway, and let's not forget Island Care Pharmacy, just opposite Scotia Bank in downtown Freeport. With that, ladies and gentlemen, as always, we say Maritime Matters out. Big thing a go on.